Raise your hand if you knew that Missouri was the 5th largest producer of rice. I'm guessing there are many hands down. I know mine would have been. But today we are here in Butler County, Missouri to learn all about Missouri's rice production. Well, Alex, we're standing here in the middle of one of your rice fields in southern Missouri, just 20 miles north of the Arkansas line. How did your family get started in rice production?
Well, we started in the 1970s. You know, we actually came to Missouri as cotton farmers, and this ground is pretty tough ground here in the swamps of southeast Missouri. Didn't grow cotton great. My grandpa even had a gin at one point. In the mid-70s or so, there was a rice allotment and more rice was starting to pick up in this area. We picked it up from there and here we are today.
Many people across the state probably don't realize how much rice is grown down here in the Boot Hill of Missouri.
That's right, we're growing anywhere from 188,000 acres to upwards to 220,000 acres of rice here in southeast Missouri.
Wow, that's a lot of rice, and it's being shipped all over the world, and we're going to continue to learn more about that. But first, it's harvesting. I mean, we can look back, the harvest is going behind us, but we've toured the farm today and seen rice in many different stages. So let's go to the beginning of the life cycle of this rice. When's it going and hitting the ground?
We'll start in early April and plant up until June. Typically, we like to get our field prep done in late March if we can. That's of course with farming, it depends on the weather.
Depends on the weather, everything.
Right. We were able to get a lot of this rice planted in early April this year and a lot of the field work done, which was good, but we had a lot of cool weather in between time.
So, we were looking at some earlier green rice that's still a couple weeks out. What stages are we looking at when it's ready to be harvested?
This right here is prime for us. We're looking, of course, moisture content like any crop is what we're looking for. We'll typically harvest our rice between 16 and 18% is where we like it to be.
Lots of different varieties of rice. How can you tell the difference and what have you chosen to grow?
There are a lot of different varieties. We are growing typically a hybrid rice, which the hybrids are really selected because of their high yield. They also are resistant to a lot of diseases, which makes them obviously, if you're looking for home runs, which is what we're going for, that's what we're after here. But there are some other varieties that are aromatics, that have a fragrance to them whenever you eat them. And those are also grown here in southeast Missouri.
So you mentioned planting in April. What's taking place during those peak growing months, June, July?
It's a pretty hectic time, as you can imagine. By that point, we've already selected what we're going to grow, where we're going to grow it. We rotate our crops from rice to soybeans here. There's also some corn grown in this area, but not very much.
So you're really raising beans to raise rice.
That's right.
So I know irrigation is king down here.
That's right.
Before we start talking about flooding of the rice, let's talk about the Boot Hill. I mean, you're sitting on the largest aquifer in the country. How much water is running below us?
That's correct, Jamie. I mean, really, this, as you said, this is one of the, really that's what makes us able to farm in this area is our access to water. Really, you don't have to go very far underneath this soil to find it. Maybe 15 feet if you dug a hole, there's going to be water down there. We're drilling wells that typically we're pulling water from 120 to 60 foot, somewhere in that area. That's really our biggest asset here is our access to our water. With these soils that we have, this rice is a great fit for what we do. Rice needs a good solid footing, and these clay soils are able to hold the soil. They're able to give the rice the environment it needs to grow. And a lot of the watering process is also for keeping weeds back.
I didn't realize that.
It's really to cover the ground so that weeds don't come up through your crop.
There's two different types of watering the rice. One's the flooding. Was this a flooded field?
That's correct. This one we used levees, which is a system basically built around the elevation of the ground. We put a levee every so often throughout the field. As the field falls 100 foot, we put a levee every 2/10 of fall. So the water will stack up in between those levees, and we can regulate how much water is in each pan, was what we call in between the levees is a pan. And that's how we, as long as we get that ground covered, then we're in good shape, and that's what we're looking for as far as
Well, we
water.
saw some of those levees today, and we also saw you pulling some gates. What was that gate doing, that tarp?
Right, so in our levees, obviously you have to have some method to get the water through there. Well, those gates are what we use to regulate our water. We'll put a board underneath that gate, and we can set the water to what desired level we want it, and those regulate each pan as it goes through the field and keeps that water at the level we want it there.
So it's harvest time. We've said that a few different times. What does the combine do? What's it taking off of the stalk that's a couple feet tall?
Really, harvest is, if you're familiar with wheat, it's pretty well generally the
Same type of swather?
idea. Correct. We're running a draper header on this combine. There are some combines in this area that are running stripper headers. We choose to run the draper mostly because we can cut beans with it also. It's just one piece of equipment that we can have in the shed.
So from here, it's going up through the combine, and then it's going to shoot over to the buggies where it's going to be brought to. How long are you storing it on the farm?
Right. We store our grain on the farm. We're taking it from these buggies, putting it in trucks, and hauling it to our bins. We'll typically start shipping out our grain from our bins in December through March, typically. So we use a special system on our bins that is able to capture the moisture and the temperature of that rice. It actually uses an algorithm that is able to dry that rice faster than we can ourselves and condition it to a point that the mills can like to see, and we can get a premium for that rice.
Well, we've seen almost the entire process here today, rice in different stages. We've also seen two little young boys running around. And you're the third generation here, rice producer in Missouri, and you're raising the fourth. What does it mean to be embedded in the rural community and raising that next generation?
Well, I know whenever I was a kid, that's what got me into it. It's always been in the blood. Growing up just like they did, getting out in the dirt. And our dads had free labor for a time there. I'm hoping to get that out of them someday.
Soon, right?
Kidding. But yeah, I mean, it's a once in a lifetime experience. Once it's in your blood, it's really hard to get out of you. Actually, my dad begged me not to get into the ag business. He said, whatever you do, go find a good job, please. Just do something else. But it is a good job. If it wasn't, I wouldn't have stuck in it for this long. There's so many barriers to entry into farming. And I'm lucky to have the family that I do that is so supportive. My dad and my uncle, they've supported my brother tenfold, and my cousin too. It's just I'm lucky to have them and to be in this industry. Like you said, my wife is an FFA teacher, and I'm really proud that I was a charter member in the FFA
at Poplar Bluff
of the chapter that she's teaching now.
That's
so
cool.
That's it really is. It's a neat experience, and it's neat to see her involved with her program. And, so soon I'm sure kids will be in it too, and hopefully they like and take on to farming as much as we have.